We have Larry Dierker in studio with us. If you want to talk to him about the Astros' upcoming season, Major League Baseball in general, or even find out what he thinks the final score is going to be of the Texans and Bengals this weekend, chime on in at 713-439-1560. It's 713-439-1560. Larry Dierker in studio here on 1560 The Game. Now, you did something very unique, and you did a lot of unique things in your career. And I know a lot of people know about stuff, and maybe some people don't, but since this is the first time I've really had a chance to speak with you at length, we'll talk about them. Now, you made your debut at the age of 18, 18th birthday, I think it was, right?
You got it.
I can't imagine. I mean, I remember what I was like as a senior in high school, a freshman in college at 18, and then the next day you're facing the likes of Willie Mays, who I believe you struck out in your first inning, right? Am I correct?
That's correct.
Well, now,
yeah.
what was
not
that?
Not bad for a guy from L.A. and Indianapolis.
You're right. I'm trying to. I'm just trying to put myself in your shoes and what that must have been like. All right, so one day you're in high school, the next day you're facing Willie Mays in the first inning. Were you shaking in your boots up there?
Oh, I was so nervous. I couldn't really throw much of anything except a fastball and a slider, which were power pitches. I had no touch at all to throw a curveball or a changeup. My adrenaline was above the legal limit, and they came by with TV cameras and interviewed me in my hotel room before I even went to the ballpark. Then when I got to the ballpark, I was surrounded by reporters, and they had a birthday cake celebration in the locker room. I mean, for an 18-year-old kid, just turned 18, it was over the top, to say the least. But there was a certain amount of fear factor, which I think allowed me to strike out Willie Mays, because I was throwing very hard. Obviously, I wouldn't have been pitching in the major leagues at 18 if I didn't throw pretty hard.
Yeah.
And so the first guy I faced was Harvey Keene. I threw 4 pitches over his head and walked him. And
that was adrenaline
from that
from the
point
ice cream,
until
the
I
frosting.
started throwing some strikes, everybody was kind of light on their feet in the batter's box. And I threw Willie a slider that started out at him and then broke over the inside part of the plate, and he just bailed out of there.
Yeah.
And so that was strikeout number 1. And I guess you could say my career went straight downhill after that.
I don't know about that. I thought that was a pretty awesome story. Now, when you were 16 and 17 years old, was that the plan? Did you think you had a legitimate shot of starting in the major leagues at such a young age? You and your parents, were you discussing these kind of things?
Yeah, not at all. I had a feeling that I would get offers. I knew I would get offers because I was heavily scouted. Mm-hmm. It was the year before they instituted the free agent draft for amateurs. So any team could sign you if they wanted to, and I had 2 or 3 teams that were pretty hot on the trail. It came down to the Cubs and the Colt 45s. And so I knew I had the physical ability, but I still thought, I was only 3-2 my high school senior year.
Really?
So I thought there's got to be guys all over this country that can throw harder than I can, that can throw more strikes or better breaking balls. So in my mind, I thought it was going to be difficult. And then after I signed and got down to the rookie league, I could tell right away that I was one of 2 or 3 guys that had a little bit more ability than the rest. And then when they called me up in September, I wasn't going to pitch, but they just wanted to see me throw on the side and get to know the coaches and all that. And I wasn't expecting to be in the major leagues within the next few years. But I could tell from watching the other pitchers throw on the side and in the game that I had at least as much as they had. Mm-hmm. And so I knew ability-wise I was okay. But then my birthday started to come on the horizon, and some PR genius said, well, if we'd start this kid on his birthday. So they came up to me and said, would you like to pitch in a game?
Sure.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, let's send me home. No.
But now I think if they would have started me the day before, I would have been 17.
Yeah, see, that PR guy should be fired. He wasn't thinking. Youngest guy ever to start a major league game or something to that effect. When you look back, you said you were 3-2 your senior year in high school. Looking back, were there other kids in high school or in your region that also made it to the major leagues that maybe you could kind of compare how you guys, somebody that was really good back then?
There wasn't anybody in our league at that time that made the major leagues, to my knowledge.
So you really had no idea. Yeah.
But a couple of years later, two guys that had some time in the big leagues, Rick Auerbach and Pete Lecoq, made it to the big leagues from the same high school I went to. And then a couple years after that, Robin Yount came out, and he came up to the big leagues at 18. So there were some guys, it was a pretty hot area for baseball scouting, but nobody in my league at that time.
Yeah, well, that's certainly interesting looking back and how it all began. Larry Dierker is with us here in studio